Do you feel as though Christmas has left your small business with a massive hole in its pocket as your cash flow has taken a nosedive? Implementing these 6 things into your processes will help turn that around and get you on the road to financial success. You may not even need to implement all 6. You might actually be already doing some of them. So let me help you drive your business finances in the right direction in a simple and really easy way so you can start to kick your goals and have the greatest year yet. In this video, I'm going to go through my 6 key tips, starting at the very beginning with the prediction of your income and your expenses. Then we'll look at the timing of sending your invoices, how to review your spending, revisiting your finances regularly, chasing overdue debts, and paying off your debts. As always, there will be timestamps in the description below because I know how valuable your time is and you already know why you are here. So my fellow entrepreneurs, let's get into this. Let's address the elephant in the room when it comes to planning for your income and expenses in the future. Yes, a plan is another word for a budget or a cash flow forecast, and yes, they are 2 different things. We also understand that you don't have a crystal ball and you don't know exactly what's going to happen in the future. But here's the thing, neither does anybody else. That doesn't stop companies like Amazon, BHP, Disney, or Apple from preparing a plan for their future income and expenses. So let's put all of that aside, get our heads down, and give this our best shot. Now, I'm not going to go too much into detail about how to create the plan itself because I've already made a video on how to go about creating a plan in itself, and I will leave a link to that video in the description below so that you can watch that video next. Just quickly, to make sure we're all on the same page, I just want to go through the difference between a budget and a cash flow forecast or plan, which is what we are talking about here. Budget is more of an ideal, it's where your goals are. It's what you would like to be achieving, including any new items of growth you might be wanting or expecting. It might include new product lines, advertising, and outlines how much you, and this is really key here, how much you are allocating to that particular item. So for example, you might want to be doing some advertising this year, but as yet do not have any fixed idea as to cost. You might allocate $10,000 for the whole year to advertising, understanding that you'll firm up on cost as you get a clear idea of how much it will all be costing you and how much you want to be spending. This kind of approach allows for flexibility in taking on new projects or developing new product lines or services. A cash flow budget, on the other hand, is as close a representation as humanly possible as to the actual cash outflows and inflows that you are expecting in terms of your cash balances. They are prepared on a weekly, fortnightly, monthly, or yearly basis. However, I would always say that to make them as useful as possible, you need to make them as detailed as possible, and to make them as detailed as possible, you need to be doing them on at least a monthly basis. They need to include all the revenue you expect to receive in a particular month and include all the expenses you expect to outlay in a particular month. I always find the last couple of years a really useful guide to help with amounts, timings, and cycles. But you can go into it sight unseen and prepare one from the very beginning if you don't have access to this kind of information. However, it does need to be as detailed as possible, so I would always recommend doing it at least monthly. Right, now we're all clear and on the same page. Why is it so important to plan for your income and your expenses? Simple. Without a goal, you have nothing to aim for, you have no idea whether or not you're achieving any of your targets or growing your business, you have no way of knowing whether or not to rein in your spending, so you don't know whether you're overspending or underspending. Given we're halfway through the financial year, is it too late to start? Heck no! You can start a plan at any point in time. It is starting that counts here. My second tip is to send your invoices out promptly. Now, I get it. You're super busy, you've done the work, you'll get to the invoice when you can, you've been trained to do this as a piece of art to justify your fees, and you really don't have time to do it now, but you will as soon as you have time. But here's the thing, the greater the period of time between the doing of the work and the provision of the invoice, the harder it is to get paid, if at all, which just means that you are carrying the cost of doing the work even longer. Finding a way to ensure that your invoices are issued in line with your agreed terms if your contract is longer, or at the same time as you deliver on the agreed work, is one way of making sure that you are paid in a reasonable amount of time. Catch your clients when they are feeling warm and fuzzy about the work you have done for them, and most of them will pay you there and then. Next on my hit list is going through your expenditure with a fine tooth comb. You are looking to split your expenses into 3 categories. Number 1, essentials. These are things which are essential to keep the lights on: electricity or certain insurances. Secondly, necessaries. These are items which are not essential but are necessary to keep the lights on. These would include things like insurances, subscriptions, stationery, bank charges, or telephone charges. Lastly, subjectives. These are pretty much anything else, and they are things where you need to really be asking yourselves, do I need to be spending this money right now? If the answer is no, then put it off until such time where you have the cash to do it. Tip number 4, don't just set and forget all of this. It needs to be regularly reviewed and updated. Your plan is absolutely useless if you never go back and look at it. How often should you be revisiting? Well, personally, I would be doing it within the same frequency with which you set the plan up in the first place. So if your plan was set up to look at it on a monthly basis, then I would be reviewing and updating it on a monthly basis. It doesn't take a huge amount of time or work, merely updating the plan for the actual amounts as they come to light, adding in excess balances if there are any, and recognizing shortfalls and helping you to understand why. Tip number 5, chase up your debtors. Now this one may sound like a bit of a no-brainer, but here's the thing. Nobody likes asking people for money. Well, not many of us anyway. So it actually makes this a really hard thing for us to force ourselves to do. However, there are ways whereby we can do this while taking away the confrontation aspect of it, which, if we're really honest with ourselves here, is the thing we don't like and we're trying to avoid. So you can start with an email to the client reminding them of the amount that they owe you. Very often this is enough to get you paid. If a couple of these don't work, then just pick up the phone and ring client. Talking human to human very often solves the problem really quickly, and you'll probably find that there's a really good reason why they haven't paid, and it's probably not you. Failing all of that, you can go down the path of debt collection if it's worth doing and it's somewhere you want to go. It needs to be said here, if you are clear with your payment terms and enforce them where necessary, you will find you have very few clients who pay you late or you have trouble with. Now, the last tip on my list is to pay to plan your debts. Again, this might sound like a bit of a no-brainer, but very often when cash flow takes a nosedive, the first thing to be skipped is a loan repayment. This leads to large catch-up payments, which puts even more stress on finances, causes nasty letters to come from your lender, which leads to more stress, and you can see the downward spiral happens really quickly. So I recommend you treat them as essential expense items under your spending review. They are non-negotiable and need to be paid to keep the lights on. In this way, you make sure they are always being paid and reducing your debt load as you go. So there you go. If you've listened to the end, you now have my 6 tips on how to improve your cash flow and to kickstart your goals for 2024 and set you on the path to reaching your financial goals. If you like this video, please click the subscribe button and I'll see you in the next one.